Let's talk design. Danae isn't your typical designer. She doesn't just make things look good, she rethinks how things work and how they connect with people, and here's how she puts it.
Everything that is around us is designed, so we can change the way we perceive things just by designing or redesigning and repositioning them in our society.
She's lived all over, from New Caledonia to New York, and now she's living in Barcelona, and it shows in her work. She's constantly bridging different worlds to find fresh solutions and new approaches.
But it was beautiful in that other sense, being impacted by so many projects. Everyone was doing something beyond their work, beyond their studies. Everyone had a music band, a company, a socks brand, wherever they wanted, they were just doing things constantly.
In her company Vandals, Danae and her team dig deep to find what really matters. And she calls it making sustainable, infinite loops, not just quick fixes, but things that'll last.
We don't wait for a challenge of an external person, entrepreneur or company to come to us, but that we, by observing the world constantly, by researching constantly, see opportunities so that we create a company, a service, whatever it is.
In this episode, Danae talks about big trends like AI, her approach to human-centered design, and why we need to keep bridging different cultures and ideas.
We need to connect more, and we need to find an end-to-end life cycle of your business. Connecting the beginning with the end, being more responsible and being smarter as well in that sense.
How do you pronounce your name?
Danae.
Danae?
Yeah, perfecto.
Yeah? Never heard it before. Danae. Okay, I have to practice that.
It's actually a Greek name. It's not a Spanish. And comes from the mythology, so it's an old name.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Danae, what's your life story? How did you get to the point where you are at right now?
Wow, that's a big question. How much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. I think, everything starts because our parents, they make us, and both my parents are sailors, are related to the sea somehow, and since very, very young age, they departed Spain and start living on their own sailing yacht and traveling around the world, on the Caribbean and then the Pacific Islands. And I was born in a Pacific island, in a French island called New Caledonia. And from there, we moving around different islands and countries, especially around the Caribbean and South America, that beautiful area of the world. And it was a great childhood, very enriching, with a lot of cultures and a lot of nature and a lot of traveling, of course.
How long did that period last, and until what age? How old were you? So
with changes here and there, it lasts until I was a teenager, so until I turned 12. So at that point, my mom said, okay, she's going to start having a very important phase on her life, and it's important that she is in a place where she can grow and she can develop with others alike, and that she's there for a longer period of time, and she creates these different groups that we create when we were teenagers, and that she starts doing her life in a way so that is not so dependent of us. So that's why we stayed in Mallorca, and that's where I grew up as a teenager, or I spent the most time of my life. And I studied my high school there, and then as soon as I turned 18, I left and I started my life again, traveling and going from one place to another.
So the part when you were young, before you were 12, you were just on the boat, sailing around, living at different places, living at the boat, and how did it work with school? Because I think I don't know what age you start school, but eventually you have to go to school, right? Also in Spain, I guess there's some law or something that tells you to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's hard law, and it's good that exists. It's very important that exists. I basically did homeschooling for most of those years. meaning that I was arriving at the beginning of the course in September to my school in Mallorca, and then they will give me all the books. They will meet with my parents to explain them what was important or what were the important topics to cover during that year, and then we will kick off our traveling, and I will do almost every day homeschooling in the morning wherever we were, if we were at the boat or if we were on shore at a place. Sometimes for times to times we were, on a friend's place or renting a place in the country we were because we want to stay longer. And yeah, I will always do my homework, and one of my parents would teach me depending on the strengths that they had and what they were better
Mm.
at. And then I was very organized and conscious that is something that I had to do because I didn't want to arrive in June at the end of the year of the scholar year and not being able to present all the work that I'd done and present past exams and all that. So
Mhm.
I was very responsible. So I wanted to have it all done. So yeah, that
Was
was
that
year
something
by
you
year.
already had in yourself, or was it also some value your parents installed in you that they are also very disciplined and responsible in some sense?
I think it's a combination. My mom, I would say she was more trying to have that a bit of a routine, although every day was different and we were in totally different spot and circumstances one day to another. But my dad was the one that we had to convince, if it was for him, we will walk up and go to the beach or go to the jungle in the morning. And I was like, no, I have to do my homework. We go later, like it
Hmm.
was harder to convince him, but then of course, he saw the value behind that, and he would sit with me and help me with history and geography and all that. So
So now looking back, what do you think about this time? How was it for you being
it was
homeschooled?
amazing. It was amazing. I think overall, I learned so much more than if I would stay on a class. Because at the end of the day, you're more focused. You have less distractions, being your friends, the distractions in class, and as well, I would see all that applied in the place and the culture, the different um, biodiversity that was around me at that moment, if that makes sense. So another thing that I would do is that every country that I would prepare a booklet about that my school requests me. So I had to explain everything about that country in from the perspective of the things that we were learning, right? So if we
Hmm.
were learning the, I don't know, something in biology about wherever the animals, so I had to study about that place that I was and apply that. And then when I will arrive in June, I will present it to all my classmates and my teachers. And I will explain them the culture there, the gastronomy, and so on. So overall, I think that gave me much more information and experiences than staying on a class and sitting there.
Hmm.
So
That
yeah,
it
I'm very
sounds like a
grateful.
really in-depth, um, how do you say? You get to know a place even better if you're living there, and then you, I mean, eventually, if the school maybe wouldn't have given you this work to do, you wouldn't have done your research that intensively about a city or a place. So I feel like it kind of gives the whole stay even more value because you get to know it also from that
Mm.
side, not only from living there, but also from doing some research and gathering information and then having to present it. So in a way, it's beautiful because do you still have these documents and these things? So it kind of
Yeah, of
also
course.
documents your way through life or through that time. So that's
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely. And I think most of my work is very related, like what I do at this point in my life, it's very related to the skills I earned during all this time, like
Hmm.
understanding so many different perspectives and bringing them together and bridge them and presenting and putting like very much and complex information together in a simple narrative. Like this is all the things I'm doing right now and they pay me for. And I realized that I learned all that during my primary years of school.
Do you have some memory or some experience that really stuck with you over the time from that time during like sailing with your parents, living really freely? Was there anything that stuck out?
So many things. I don't know. I think maybe, I mean, when you're a kid as well, you adapt so easily that was my normal life, you know, that's what I thought life was, or at least for me. So I didn't reflect on it that much, you know, until I was a teenager. And then I was like, oh, that was different from other fellows, you know, that's definitely something. But before that, I thought, you know, I was just living my day to day and that's it. But I really liked being part of a community for a while. So when we stayed for 3 or 6 months somewhere, and I used to go to school there just for that short period of time, they would let me go. So I went to school in Cuba, or I went to school in Puerto Rico, and that was very interesting because schools can change so much from one place to another, right?
Mm.
Um, they were totally different organisms and dynamics. So I really like to arrive and see what was the dynamic in that specific school, you know, and what was the vibe there. Although the first day, my mom always says it was very hard for me. I didn't want to go, but then I loved it.
I can imagine. Are you still in touch with some people from that time?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people. Also, like, there are many friends of my parents and that they were living the same life in a way. So
Hmm.
we will find each other so from time to time in one place or the other. And it's a big community of sailors and, you know, people that live that life. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're still in touch. They're my cousins and uncles, not blood related, but they're part of the way we grew up, right?
That's awesome. So fast forward, then you lived at Mallorca and you went to school there from 12 till when? Around?
18.
Till 18. And then?
Yeah.
How did it go on?
Then I went to study in New York, totally opposite from the childhood I had.
Hmm.
I wanted to be in a big city. I love the urban feeling as much as I love nature, but I really wanted to be more in touch with that side, which I was not so impacted by while growing up, right? So
Hmm.
I really wanted that part of me to develop and to explore. And then I always wanted to be a designer. I always knew I wanted to be a designer, so I had a lot of references while growing up, like friends of my parents that they were designers in different fields. So always looking closer to what was their work like and going to their studios and understanding a bit more. So I was sure about that. But then my parents said, "Yeah, okay, no problem. How are we gonna pay for this? You know, this is a big dream." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, about that." I didn't thought about it. So then I took a gap year from 18 to 19 years old, and I went to the Caribbean, back to all my friends and family I had there, and spent 1 year traveling and practicing my English, like fine tuning my English and saving a lot of money. So mainly working on boats as well as doing some photography gigs because I used to do a lot of photography back then. And then I saved all the money I could, fine tune my English, and then went to New York, started studying my studies, my career.
So, design. When was the first? Do you remember the first moment you kind of were amazed or fascinated by design and that stuck with you and that's how it developed into your life now of working
Yeah,
as
I
a
don't
designer?
know like a moment itself, but I was always fascinating about the idea of creating things or changing the world we live in. And since day one, my favorite plain topic was to create a company and sell something. I was doing
Hmm.
that constantly, and I will invent that as many things as you can imagine. So I will sell, I don't know, special sunscreens, and I will do the packaging, and then I will then create a company that will help you to design your signature. So I will ask you some questions. You will explain me your personality, and then I will design you your signature. So in
Hmm.
case you wanted to change it, I would help you. And I was like doing all these things constantly, right? And then yeah, having friends of my parents that they were either shoe designers, some others were boat designers, and others were graphic designers. I saw that that was a way of living and that you could create things and people would pay you to think, design new things and, you know, bring them into the world. So I think I started to get all these inspirations little by little and grow this idea. I know it's very early because I have my first business card saying Danae Goméz designer, and my lettering says I was about 8 or 9 years old. I don't know if I knew what it meant yet, just yet, but yeah, I don't know if this one specific moment or just it grew over the years, you know.
Can you kind of pinpoint what is so fascinating for you about design?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mindset is what is more interesting about it for me. The fact that you can think about all possibilities in the world and rethink anything that already exists, any structure, any product, any dynamic, and that putting together the right elements, that you can create something totally new. You know, having that ability of doing that and following that process, I think that's beautiful and can be applied to anything. So through my career, I've applied it to many different things. I've been in the graphic design world, I've been in the tech and digital world, and I've been in the experience and service design world, and now I'm in the business world. So at the end, once you have the mindset and you strengthen your skills on that, you can apply it to anything that it's needed to be created or rethought somehow, right?
Mm-hmm. So what was your first step into this world when you went to New York? And how do I get started? If I want to, I mean, you knew you wanted to be a designer, you wanted to do something in that space. How did you start?
So back then there was not as many possibilities as there are now. So basically you had to choose a discipline, right? So either you wanted to be an industrial designer, or you could be a graphic designer or fashion designer mostly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
among those, I really was always a very visual person, and I liked a lot like conceptualizing ideas. So that's why I turned into the graphics side and I studied graphic design. Um, so from there, luckily, the mindset on the school I studied and the teachers I had, it was very broad already. So it was not only about creating a logo or choosing a typeface, it was much more um, enriched from other disciplines and like yeah, bigger things, more complex needs of
Mm-hmm.
clients or of people in general. So then I was seeing like the impact that a design decision can have in the world. Um, for instance, we did a very short student project that I enjoyed so much and enlightened me a lot. That was creating a branding for a company of electricians, that they were very sad and embarrassed of being electricians and working on that field, because they
Mm-hmm.
would go through Manhattan with these clothes and everyone would know that they are electricians, and they didn't feel proud about it. The clothes were like a lot related to hands-on work, and everyone else was, you know, running with their suits and the cool clothing, and then they were almost like pain point at right, that's how they felt. So
Mm-hmm.
then through the process of understanding how they felt, or were the values of the company, everything else, we discovered that by changing the brand into something that they were proud about, that proud to wear, will not only increase the visibility and awareness of the brand for clients, but also for internal culture, right, for the employee experience.
Yeah.
And we designed, for instance, different clothing for them, that with different branding applications, that they would be able to change over the week, so not always wearing the same clothes. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like very cool, like superhero inspired clothing. So then they automatically felt like, you know, they were the cool guys. They were saving people's problems with electricity, and it was a huge impact for them, you know. And it was just changing colors and forms and shapes and typography, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that inspired me, one of the most early in my career, to yeah, to see the impact that that change can have.
Yeah, I think this example shows that it goes beyond just a logo, for example, for a company, for a product, or, it's not just some visual feature you put out there for people to see. It, if you connect it to the whole culture behind it, then it has an impact on the people as well who are working there, because you want to have, in my experience, you want to have a culture where you feel united, you feel empowered, you feel respected, and you want to be proud of what you're doing. And I
Absolutely.
mean, of course, at the center lies your attitude towards it, but still, it's easier to feel as a group or community or a company and feel proud of it when you have the visual aspects and the culture all intertwined together that supports this view. And then you feel like it's kind of like I mean, wearing a uniform, like you said, like if you have something that you're proud of, it's visually appealing, and everyone's wearing it, for example, then you feel like part of it, and you feel proud of it, and you want to spread the message also going outward. So it's beautiful because it can
Absolutely.
change so much, and also in the sense of well-being for one person working at the company, like you said, it has a big impact, or
And
can have a big
even in
impact.
society, right? When you put that, like somebody created the suits and said suits are for the people that have power and money. And since today, we're going to start valuing that and we're going to start admiring those people, you know? And
Hmm.
then the people with suits were the guys, right? And everyone want to achieve that somehow for a period of time. And that is something that somebody created, you know, and the society by it. But we can redefine that constantly, and we have that power. We everything that is around us is designed, so we can change the way we perceive things just by designing or redesigning them and repositioning them in our
Hmm.
society. So to see the kids on the streets looking at these electricians like they were superheroes, I can tell you they were much more, the kids were much more um, amazed and were admiring and wanted to become the electrician and not this boring guy with a suit, you know?
Hmm.
And that's beautiful because who says that being an electrician is worse than have an office work from 8 to 5? You know, that makes no sense. Who said that? You know, so you
Yeah.
can really redefine a lot of things within this complexity that we are creating as a society.
What would you say? How did living in New York, and I think, did you also live in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I lived in Los Angeles after that. I
How
was
how
escaping the
did
cold.
ah how did this experience shape your approach or perspective on creativity and design?
I think a lot, and I'm very glad that I choose that path so early. Um, because I always said that the most enriching thing about studying in New York was not the university or the topics we were covering there. That can be amazing in so many other places, doesn't matter. But the city itself, right? And
Hmm.
it's for me, New York City is like a synthesis of the world. Like you can have it all in one city, and I think that happens in other like mega or metropolis, you know, like big cities like that one. But New York has something very special and very unique about it, that the city is very alive and it's very mix of cultures, of um, ideas, and you know this concept of if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, or you know, there is that feeling on the air constantly. So you can always
Hmm.
have an idea, make it happen in the same day. And this is something that in other places, because of the culture, because of the possibilities, people are slower, or they want to be very sure before doing things, or there are not places where you can go to record or to rent this or that you need to get started with your idea. And in New York, you get that, right? So it's a little bit of a playground, if you want to call it, or a lab to experiment. So I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience to live there, especially when you're very young. And the only shocking thing is that I couldn't drink, and I was used to the European way. So I had to stop, wait to start again with 21 to go out and all these things. That was hard.
Hmm.
But it was beautiful in that other sense, you know, like being impacted by so many projects. Everyone was doing something beyond their work, beyond their studies. Everyone had a music band, a company, socks brand, wherever they wanted. They were just doing things
Wow.
constantly, and people from all over the place. And that's something that, if I have to choose a place to live, that's the only thing I need to have, is that there is multiculturality, because I don't feel from anywhere in particular. I cannot
Hmm.
connect to one culture only, and I need to have that around me constantly to feel alive.
I guess that's also what pulls people to the city, the multicultural aspect, but also, like you said, this energy of everything is possible, you can do it, and
Yeah,
almost everyone is doing something on the side or thinking about doing something. And I mean, that's inspiring, because you can look at the world and say, okay, it's overwhelming and I can't do anything else and I will just go the safe route. But you can also view it or look at it from the point of view of, you know, everything is possible that you want to achieve. You just have to find something that you're inspired by, and then believe in it, believe in yourself, and just start going in that direction. And I find that to be really amazing, and I'm trying to also have that around me, because it helps me, it inspires me, it gives me energy, and it fuels my passion also
of
to
course.
create something, to be free in what I'm doing and not limit myself in that sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. As you were saying, I think it's something that you can create, but if the environment is like that as well, it drives much more things, right? I mean, I would say, yeah, I wanted to be a photographer, or I wanted to do a lot of photography work. And then I was working at a restaurant on the weekends, and my boss said, "Why don't you do the pictures for our restaurant?" What do you mean? I'm 19 years old. I don't know shit. Um, but okay, I mean, if you give me this opportunity. And then he's like, "So how much do you charge?" And I was like, "Oh, and you're paying me for that?" In my idea, in my culture and everything, if someone gives you that opportunity, it's something that you take, but that you have to be very careful with it, and you cannot behave like you're a professional or anything. You maybe not charge them at all. And he was like, "No, I'm paying you. You're doing a job for me, and it is
Hmm.
something you want to pursue. Let's do it." Small things like that happen every day, and that allows you to, yeah, grow, explore, and keep
That's yeah,
putting
that's
ideas
also
into the world.
yeah, and it's also about these small things, these opportunities that occur along the way, but they only happen if you are open to experiencing that, and also kind of looking for it, and
Mm,
talking to people
yeah,
about what you're passionate about, what you want to do in life, not holding back, because you never know what comes back to you if you talk to someone. And I think that's also part of luck. Luck doesn't happen if you just sit around waiting for something to happen. You kind of
absolutely.
have to already put energy into that direction, and then luck is going to come your way. And then it's up to you to see the opportunities and take the chances. And that's kind of what
Absolutely.
happened with you. I mean, you're working at a restaurant, probably you talked about that you're passionate about photography, for example, and then someone says, "Yeah, why don't you take the pictures for our restaurant?" And you're like, "Yeah, I never thought about it, but yeah, let's do it." So that's how it starts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say, as you were talking about luck, that like life is about planting seeds. Like you have to go around planting seeds constantly, and then watering them, right? Being behind, watering them constantly. And if you stop watering them, then the effort you've done probably goes nowhere.
Hmm.
And if you water them constantly and correctly, something, by luck, by many circumstances, might grow. You don't know which one is going to grow, but you keep looking, and one at some point is going to sprout. And it's not just because you planted a seed and you watered the seed, right? And that's what I try to do, for everything I do, for my work, for yeah, friendships,
Hmm.
anything.
It's also this kind of ironic aspect that living life forward doesn't always make sense. It only makes sense looking backwards. So if you
Mm.
look back, you see these different points or things that happen in your life, and then they make sense if you are willing to see the connection between them.
Totally.
And that's so interesting. because it for me, I mean, my attitude towards it is like everything will make sense in the end, and that's why I probably see the sense in it. But when you're trying to approach life that way, then you always you just you're just getting, what's the word, um you're getting reaffirmed in
Frustrated?
what you
Mm.
believe already, you know? So you look back and then you're like, yeah, it made sense that I took that turn, moved to that city, you know, whatever it is. And that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely.
Yeah. So wasn't it overwhelming to going from a life of sailing around, being really free, um, probably not being in so many crowded places, and then living in a city like New York?
No, not at all. I mean, depends also on what do you like. I mean, and how on what do you need at this point in your life, right? I think also that changes from time to time. Um, I always loved the chaos of humanity. So being growing up in South America or Central America and the Caribbean, there is a lot of that. Even if you're
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by beautiful nature, there is a lot of chaos and a lot of everyone is loud and extra, and there's a lot of patterns, textures, and colors. And this is something I would love to see, and that's New York again. You know, the difference
Mm-hmm.
is that you have less nature and more concrete, but the people and the vibe is very similar in that sense. You know, it's not Zurich. I don't know. You know, that
Yeah.
it's a calm and organized city, and um, it's very, very, very vibrant. And yeah, and I used to do many things or eat many things that I would do when I was in Puerto Rico or when I was in, Antigua and Barbuda. I don't know, like there is a lot of commonalities,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a lot of people from all these places there as well. So there is a lot of communities in within, right?
Yeah.
And for instance, I love salsa music and Latin music in general, and New York is the birth of all that. It came together there because of the immigrants that lived in the 70s and 60s there. So it's there's a big scene on that, for instance, right? Or I will love jazz and blues and like jam sessions. You also get that because that's where it started. That's also a key place in the world where all that came together. So you can always find your niche and your specific things you like, and
Mm-hmm.
that I was not in Times Square or Wall Street ever. That's another life, another city.
Yeah.
You just find your corners, your people, your yeah, the things you like. But no, I never got overwhelmed about cities. The other way around. I love them, and since then, I only lived in cities, in bigger cities. Um, from there, I moved to LA. Then
Mm-hmm.
I
What did
was
you
a
do in LA?
lot in Brazil. Um, I finalized my studies there, so I did 1 year course, like specialty course, in experience design, which was broadening up a little bit more the the graphic design I studied in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and so understand more behaviors, patterns, and things like that. Um, and I moved there because of the weather. Really, I love New
Mm-hmm.
York, but it was very hard for me. The winter is very hard for me. I'm not a winter person. So I tried to escape first winter in New York. I left to Puerto Rico, second winter to Brazil, I think, or the other way around. So I was trying to escape the winters, but they were very long. I still suffered them. Like I had to, take out from my door the snow to get out to go to the subway stations, and that was insane for me. But there was sun at least. That's very
Mm-hmm.
important to say. um, but then, yeah, I said, why not going to LA? I can continue my studies there, still in the same country. And I heard the Mediterranean um, climate is very similar, and I think I'm going to enjoy more of that. And I started to miss nature already. In New York, it's very
Mm.
difficult to get out to nature. Nobody has a car, it's far away. Once you get to nature, it's amazing, it's insanely beautiful and wild, but it's not something you do weekly. So
Yeah.
I was start feeling a little bit off or down because of that. And Central Park was not enough, clearly. So then in LA, you have much more contact with nature. It's a constant. It's part of their lifestyle. You always go hiking. You always go. to the seaside. And yeah, I heard that, went to visit, loved it, moved there.
Mm.
And there was a lot of sailing, a big sailing scene as well, especially in San Diego. So I could do a little bit of that as well. And enjoyed it. But then after a whole year, I thought I was not connecting to the culture of the city, although it's very big and it's very cosmopolitan as well. Um, there is a culture of, as I found the description or definition of non casualties. Does that make sense? So
What do you mean
anything
by that?
anything just happens, right? Everything is
Mm-hmm.
planned. You have to plan for everything. Things just don't happen to you,
Okay.
you know? Because you don't walk around. You cannot get to walk through the city like you do in New York, like you do in many cities in Europe. You have to get your car, you have to get a parking spot, and you have to book a place that you're going to eat like a week before you go
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. It's always like a little bit like that. So I felt like anything was just happening. I had to plan for it, and that made me sad. I'm used to Latin or Hispanic way of living is total opposite. It's going with the flow. Is, hey, why do you come over to my house? Let's do something, or let's grab a beer now. Go, and you just do it, and you don't plan 1 week ahead that you're gonna have a beer on Wednesday afternoon. So then, after a year of that, I learned a lot, made a lot of good friends, enjoyed nature. But then I decided I want to move out because of that. I didn't connect with the culture. I didn't want to spend my life there. And yeah, that's when I decided to go back to Spain. That I never lived here as an adult, and I tried to explore that, and I loved it.
At what point were you in your career wise? Were you working for a firm or were you already doing your own thing?
I was freelancing and working with different companies, and exploring a little bit like how to develop, my work. So doing like a few things that were very connected and similar, but still like
Mm-hmm.
had, I would say, a foot into the branding and graphic design world, and a foot on the experience side, so more UX or service design and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, trying out, see what are things that were converging, what are things that were diverging, and deciding what I wanted to follow. And then moving back to Spain, I moved to Mallorca at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a job at a startup that was starting up, and we were only like 8, 10 people, and I was the designer, so I was doing everything, and that was good for me because I had a skill set that allowed me to design the newsletter or create the experience of the website at that point. So
What kind of brand was that?
it was around like holiday rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So it was let's say like booking.com or something like that, but for holiday rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it was a lot of proof of concept. It was an opportunity that the CEO saw in the market, and start trying out if it made sense, if there was a market fit, if there were investors willing to vet for that. And
Mm-hmm.
they did. So we grew fast, and in 2 years we were 150, and I was leading the UX design team. We had a few different profiles, from graphics to UX writers to this and that. And then I was very in touch with the business side and
Mm-hmm.
innovation and so on. And then I was like, that's what interests me. That is it. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
And I got like I studied, or I prepare myself or educate myself through many things around that. So lean startup, and I was studying like different methodologies to work better and faster, to create a lot of MVPs and experimentation, and then make a lot of testing and learn from that. Instead of what I learned at school, that was do this perfect job and then present it to the world. It was
Mm-hmm.
totally opposite. And also connecting a lot of perspectives and a lot of needs of the different stakeholders, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to what the product designer would, or the product owner would say was best for the product. Then what the salespeople were saying that was necessary for us to keep on selling to our clients what the CEO saw as a vision. And then we were putting all that together to create experience of the brand, the product, and all the materials around that. And yeah, that was very holistic and very complex, and I loved it.
If I, let's say I'm starting a brand, I have a product or service idea, how would you approach a design concept or creating an identity for this brand? How do you approach that as a designer?
So currently, I don't design anymore, like, the materialization of a brand. I collaborate with great graphic designers, great web designers at all sorts, all specialties. Um, but I work more on the strategy side, right? So I
Yeah.
strategize in order to answer to all these needs that the world, the users, and the different stakeholders of the business have, and then put together a strategy to all to work towards. And but if someone has a challenge like that, we always start by analyzing the value, that the unique value that you bring to the world, like understanding what is it special about it, and what is the right combination of elements that makes you different, unique, or that people are going to value the most. Understanding what is that people value, and understanding what are the pulses of the market, what is the market um, vibrating, what are the trends, where is it going, who
Mm.
is around you, and finding your spot, finding your yeah, area where you can play, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll define where are you at this point, analyzing all your context, defining your vision and the idea of B, where you want to get, and then we will define how to get there. So what do we do
Yeah.
from A to B?
So this is what you're also doing with your company, your agency right now with Vandals.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. That's
So
exactly what we do.
let's jump one step back again. So after working for the startup, you said kind of your passion was fueled for being more involved in the business side of things as well and handling these stakeholders. So how did you get started with your own? Is it an agency or what would you call it?
We call it a service at this
Mm-hmm.
point. It's a research and strategy service. And we are ecosystem of people that we will be putting together different teams depending on the challenge we have in front. But the way we arrived here is because I decided to study a master's on innovation methodologies. So really putting together all these elements that I was telling you about before. So
Mm-hmm.
all the user research side, with all the market research side, with all the innovation methodologies and strategies to find this sweet spot. And yeah, I studied that master's in Barcelona and loved the city as well. And then I started to work here on a bigger agency that they were an innovation agency or product innovation agency at that point, and worked there almost 3 years. It was very, very interesting journey, um, and we developed the agency towards from a studio to agency almost. So I was working on the strategy team, not only for client projects but within the agency itself, and it was very interesting to see like how can you redefine um, the services and the positioning and the experience of a studio into an agency that is more strategic, that is has a bigger um, set of, let's say, offering to or services to offer. And yeah, I worked there for a while, and since day one I started working hand by hand with my current partner. So basically we were almost following our under the two founders of the agency, the two of us constantly. So we were very close to them, learned a lot from them, from their past experience, and also through this um, change that we did during those years. And we were working a lot and we were very active, going everywhere, traveling, going to conferences, meeting new clients, like it was very hectic. It was a lot of fun. And since the first month, I told her on a lunch meeting we had, you know, you and I, we're going to end up doing something out of here, clearly. And she was like, yeah, right. Like you say those things, but yeah, it really happened. So after a while, we jumped out because we said, our goal here, our challenge here is done. We've done it. We got to this point. Up to now is just watering, watering, and watering. But we already planted the seeds. We already water the seeds, and they sprout, and it's done. We can stay forever here if you want, but we are 25, 28. I don't know where old were we, and maybe we don't want to stay here forever. We want to create something on our own and then stay forever somewhere else, but in the future, not now. Um, let's do it. And yeah, we jumped into the entrepreneurship world and created Vandals.
That's awesome. How did it feel, and how how did you get started doing that?
So basically, we waited to have one client at least. And
Mm-hmm.
once we had the client, we jumped in and we said, okay, we can close this deal, then I'm sure we can close new ones. And a lot of confidence and faith on your work, your experience at this point, and planting seeds all the time. So being active, talking to people, going to places, going to events, and having constant conversations with people, and trying different narratives or messages to explain what we did, trying an error. And things that started to come together. We felt comfortable with one narrative. People were seeing the value of what we were doing. So we put together a brand and spread the word a bit more. And people were just naturally and organically coming to us saying, maybe you can help me. I don't know exactly if you can, I'm not sure if you can help me with that, but I'm going to tell you. So, yeah, we end up growing, let's say, our portfolio of clients very organically. And it was a lot of like putting much more hours than would was needed because we were
Mm-hmm.
starting. So we wanted to be sure everything was perfect, and we had to create things that we didn't had. Like it was double the work. So it was a lot of investment in time and effort for sure, and a lot of uncertainty. You didn't know if next month they would call you again, or nobody would call you ever again. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's that, and you're used to your payroll at the end or the beginning of the month, and then now it's just you wake up and you don't know what's going to happen in the following 24 hours, and even less in the next 30 days. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to learn to live with that, which is a whole process, I think, a personal process.
How did you manage that? Was it easy for you?
No, it was not. I think that was the hardest thing because I didn't have the savings of my life that I was fine. I needed my money. I was like, okay, but next month's okay, but then after 3 months, what happens? I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So it was, yeah, it was stressful, I would say. I would live in a constant stress mode. Like I would go to sleep and not rest truly. I will go to have a drink with my friends, or it was a weekend that I was at the beach, and I will not be peacefully disconnected from the work. Not because I had something to do, but because I was not sure it was gonna continue rolling, and it was a bit of a survival mode for a few months, and then but we were so passionate about it and we believed on it so much that you keep going. You just put everything you have and you just keep going, and at the end your efforts, if everything goes well, they see you see the results, and things calm down, and you start to have more projection, and people keep coming, so you trust yourself and the project, and then you sleep better at night.
What role did it play that you were doing it together? Was that something? Because I feel like often if you have someone who has the same vision for something, it's way easier to keep going and be inspired because always you sometimes you have phases where you're down, you may be frustrated, and then the other person is the person who tells you, "Hey, let's keep going." And
Absolutely.
how was it for
Absolutely. I
you?
think it was exactly like that. I mean, I couldn't do it alone, I think. I mean, maybe I could, but not at that point. Or I would
Mm-hmm.
maybe quit before, or I would end up doing something else because to adapt to the moment, not having a lot of patience for some things, or yeah, just it's support, and
Mm-hmm.
there are moments where the other person needs it, some other moments you need it, and usually you tend to balance one to the other, and it's not that you're down at the same time or you are super high and positive at the same time, so that's good, because you push each other, and you also, I think, in a way feel responsible for the other. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when you have a kid or something, like you have someone else to take care of in a way.
Yeah.
And even we are adult and independent and wherever, you still have that, it's like, okay, I need to wake up today and show Valentina that we can do this, and inspire her. And she will think the same, and then we will end up inspiring each other and pushing each other. And it worked.
Yeah. I read something that you said, you're creating sustainable infinite loops in your work. What do you mean by that?
Basically, when they in graphic design or in fashion design, or even in product design, they say like to create, let's say, timeless design that, a Hugo Boss suit that is from 20s, still something
Mm-hmm.
uh, current that you can use that people value. So the same way can be done in things that are more intangible, and they're more behind the scenes, or things that are more relating to how you connect value. So this is what we mean by that, right? So either if we're creating a structure of a service or of an experience or a company itself, a business model, that we make sure it's a cycle, and it's not a one shot, something that works one time and then they have to come to us again, or they have to go to someone else and rethink that thing again. So that really it's fueling itself, it's working, and it's almost like a motor system that keeps going, right? And of course you have to fuel it, you have to repair it, you have to be there, but still it's strong enough, and it's a value that it's gonna keep exchanging, and it's going to keep making sense in a year from now and 3 years from now if everything goes well. So yeah, it's creating that. Those structures are, I don't like to say timeless because it's not true, the world changes so fast, but at least that they're strong and that they are sustainable in time.
So how can you ensure that your designs have a lasting impact? Maybe it's more the word lasting impact because that's something you want to put out into the world.
I think it's basically it makes a lot of sense to connect that with research. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just saying, this should be like that, and being superficial about it because it's the current trend, so you're just looking at the surface and following that. It's you going deeper into what are people needs and motivations, and those things are usually not changing that much over time. You can change the way you get yourself entertained, but everyone is going to have the need of being entertained forever. So
Yeah.
that's what we mean. Like we go deeper into our research, understand the what people really value, and then create something that answers to that. That can be iterating over time, but there is something that is core that will last.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
I
sense?
can imagine that that's, I mean, you can plan for it, but it's not, you cannot be sure that that's the case, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
Because it's
mean,
so
you just
complex. You never know what the future will bring, how it will change, and what trends are going to come in the future. So,
exactly. That's
yeah,
why I
also
was saying you
regarding,
need to fuel afterwards, and you need to
mm-hmm.
oil that motor afterwards. But still, the basic elements of it are going to work. No, if your vision is to entertain people,
Mm-hmm.
the way you entertain them might change over time, but your your purpose, you know that the value that you bring to the world is that you are an entertainer. I'm putting that example, out there, but
Yeah.
and once you know that, you're not going to disappear. You're just going to add value over time because you're going to be able to adapt to the changes of the world, but you're going to maintain that core value and learn from every iteration.
Yeah. So, okay, first let's talk about future. What trends do you think are most transformative in the design industry in the future? And how do you think you can integrate them into your work?
Big question. um I think two come to my mind. The first one, I think, is the idea of hyper personalization. The idea of that we want to users, people, clients, wherever we want to call them, we want to be uh, listened to, and we want to be tailored and target. So we really want the experiences to adapt to ourselves, to answer to our needs, and we don't want anything else, right? So it's a big challenge for anything that you do, that you put out in the world, to be able to hyper personalize those experiences, those products, those brands, because people are getting more and more um, let's say, different in a way, right? There are more niches, there are more differences, there are more individualism in general. So we are not trying to flatten the curve anymore and to wear the same clothes and talk the same way and have the same perfect family anymore. So to adapt to all those realities and personalities and situations, it's very hard to keep up and to create something that answers to you, Tim, and not to males between 25 and 35 that live in the northern part of Germany. That's nothing anymore. Demographics mean nothing anymore. So how do you learn about team and about team's reality, about what team really needs? That's very hard, and that's very difficult as any company, as any organization to do. But it's going to be more and more important, and we're just going to, I think, continue being celebrating diversity and difference more and more. So we need to adapt as friends and as people to that.
Yeah.
And the second one I would say is, I hate to bring it, but it's because it's a buzzword almost, but it's AI.
Mhm.
You cannot think your business without it anymore. It's like if you were in the 80s, early 80s, and you didn't want to create a big company, a big tech company related to anything related to the internet. Okay, you can, but then you're going to be out in 10 years. I mean, it's up to you, but it's impossible that it's not an element, that it's part of your business model somehow. Doesn't matter if it's on an internal process or if it's part of your R&D, but it has to be there. It's a reality. It's the next evolution of information, of data, of the internet itself. So you have to bring it close instead of rejecting it or put it far from you. And it's also our responsibility to create AI in a way and to bring it closer to your needs and human. Um, if you put it apart, then only a few are going to create it, and that's dangerous.
Yeah. The future, we're gonna have to adapt to what's coming, and we're gonna have to stay on top of, I mean, go with the flow and go with the direction technology is taking us, because it's not going away. Like, but the buzzword you said, AI, it's always gonna be there. So let's see that we can shape it in a way that it helps us, we don't lose control of it, and we
Exactly.
integrate it into the process. And I mean, right now you already know it's changing so much. If you're talking school, if you're talking university, if you're talking design, if you're talking anything, it's fully present. So yeah, it's not gonna go away.
It's not going to go away, and it's also been there for a while. The thing is that general users, we just realized, or we got to use it in
Mm.
the recent 3 years. But it's been there since the 80s or the 90s, and it's just that it's they didn't see the market fit. They didn't got to bring it to the masses. And when they found this dialogue, conversational way of doing it, they clicked and they saw the market
Hmm.
fit and they brought it to us, but it's been there forever. So it's not something that someone thought, oh, we can before. It's a whole development, and that's why I think it's going to stay. That's what I mean. It's not
Yeah,
a hype.
yeah, yeah. Also, the benefits are clear. It makes stuff
Absolutely.
easier.
Absolutely. I mean, why
Yeah.
not? I mean, another thing I see for the future now, another trend, last one, is I think people are tending to work less and less in hours and in effort, I mean,
Hmm.
and to think their work-life balance differently. New generations are a clear example of that. They are already doing that. So prioritizing other things that are not your work, your career, that's not everything, and that's already proved by so many people, right? And to work smarter, and that doesn't mean to work 12 hours a day. That doesn't, if that for me is that you're working dumber, dumber,
Yeah.
not smarter. And I see ourselves working 3 days a week and 6 hours every day of
Hmm.
those 3 days, and technology and all sorts of things helping us to work smarter. We're also so many people, so we can connect more things, like the ecosystem can be much, much more connected. So we take advantage of these things instead of yourself, your company doing the work of three companies. Collaborate with them, and partner and join efforts.
Yeah. I think the problem is if we get faster or more efficient and stuff, everyone gets faster and more efficient and stuff, and then we're not gonna just stop working after 6 hours. It's just gonna be more workload we have to do. So I think, like in a lot of big companies, I'm thinking of my old corporate job, for example. I mean, if one person is just faster and more efficient than the other, that might work. But if everyone's on the same level, then again, we're just gonna do more work. But yeah, I get the point. I mean, this should be something to aim for, to work more, work more efficient, to mm, let's say use the time in a more responsible way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, in that sense, corps are the last to change usually. So they're gonna come to the wave the latest, that
Hmm.
startups and small companies are the ones that are gonna apply those big changes 5 years, 10 years from now, and maybe 25 years from now, corps are gonna say, oh shit, nobody's wanna work with us. Why is that? And that's
Yeah.
already happening. It's starting to happen. If you don't have like good well-being for your employees, if you don't have the possibility of remote work some days a week, Gen Z is already saying, oh, I don't want to work with you. I
Hmm.
don't care that you are this big corp. I'm going with this startup that has a ping pong table, that Fridays are off, and that whatever other
Yeah.
benefits that are not the name of the big company or the biggest salary even. So
Yeah.
it's starting to shape that way somehow.
Yeah, I like the turn this topic is gonna take, but I think it's gonna blow up the conversation. So I have one question more. So what's your vision for Vandals?
So our vision is to keep growing the ecosystem and keep having the greatest partners at every part that we need. So you were asking if we're as an agency before. So we like to say that we have things from a creative studio and innovation agency at this point. We do have them. That's where we come from. And our methodologies and ways of doing are there, of course. But we are also a business consultancy at many points, right? So what we like to bring to the table is also the concept of venture builder, a bit closer to us, in the sense that we don't wait for a challenge of an external person, entrepreneur or company to come to us, but that we, by observing the world constantly, by researching constantly, see opportunities and seek to following them within Vandals itself, right?
Hmm.
So that we create a company, a service, wherever it is, with whoever wants to join us, and that comes inside out and not just outside in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would like to be able to do that and build some new ventures in the world and bring better services, experiences, and solutions overall to the world.
I'm very certain you're gonna get there in the
Thank you
future.
so much.
Yeah.
We're gonna try for sure. We're gonna work hard, not 12 hours a day, but hard,
Yeah. Efficient.
enough, efficiently, smarter,
Yeah.
and yeah, hopefully we're there. We're there sooner than later.
I have one last question for you. The podcast is called Bridging Worlds, and I would like to know from you what Bridging Worlds means to you in your private life, your work.
Well, I really loved the title of your podcast since I
Thank you.
got to know it since day one. I think it's beautiful in many ways. Um, and I think it's also what we have to do. You know, instead of putting barriers and walls and stoppers, it's finding those bridges and connecting things. So I think that's very important in all aspects of life. Um, in my personal life, I would say is bringing the best of all the cultures I've lived or I've experienced, and that's what I try to do. So I love many things that I learned from living in the US, and I love the way they organize or their perspective of work and efficiency and productivity, and I love that, and I bring it to the table. But I bridge that with um, you know, the more qualitative side of analyzing things and perceiving things that maybe it's Spanish have and their perspective from their personal experiences that they bring to the table at work as well. And then um, I'm constantly bridging, I think, yeah, cultures of that I'm being impacted by, right? I'm married with a Colombian person, and we lived in between those two worlds. We live in between Europe and the reality that there is here, and Colombia and the reality that there is there, and we enjoy both equally, and we try to combine the best of each in our lives and in our home. And then on the work side, it's clear for us, especially at Vandals, as I was saying before, since we work with this concept of systemic design, which is basically um, zooming out and looking at the bigger picture and bridging and connecting other systems, other companies, other people, other realities that are around this specific thing that we're trying to find a solution for. So this zooming out and creating and finding those possible connections for us is the future of businesses and solutions in general. Um, Especially if we want to create more circular and sustainable business models, we need to connect more, and we need to find an end-to-end um, life cycle of your business, right? So yeah, connecting the beginning with the end, it's the same thing, you know. That's very important. And stop being so individualistic and just thinking about the thing you're doing. And I don't care if that ends up in a landfill, that's not up to me, you know.
Mhm.
And being more responsible and being smarter as well in that sense.
Yeah, that's important. Let's take that away from this conversation. Thank you for being on the show. Also, if people want to reach you or stay up to date with you, with your project, where should they go?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, feel free to do so. You can find us on LinkedIn or on our website, vandals.pro, or even on Instagram. Um, yeah, vandals.pro as well. And yeah, we try to communicate here and there, not like crazy, not bringing too much noise to the world, but being present. So yeah, we love to connect with anyone that wants to talk to us.
Perfect. Danae, thank you for being on the show. It was a lot of fun talking to you, and
Thank you, Tim.
maybe we'll do another one soon.
Perfect. Whenever, we are more than welcome. I can bring my partner as well if you want. She's a great human. You will enjoy
Perfect. I'm looking
conversation with her
forward
as
to it.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Just a quick reminder. If you like this episode, please rate the podcast show, subscribe to not miss any future episodes. And if you like this one, please share it with a friend. Also, thank you so much for following on my journey. I'm really excited about the future, and I'll see you in the next one.